Listen to me. If there was a wise man who would ever think of this, they would say in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. For I am the man himself.
What is going on, guys? This is the Club of the Man 1993, and we are back here for another review of WWE 24, as we are now reviewing WWE 24 WrestleMania Orlando. We're taking a look back at behind the scenes from WrestleMania 33, which took place back in 2017 in Orlando, Florida, at the Citrus Bowl. It was one of the best WrestleMania stages, for sure. Long ramp, because at the time, for some reason, long ramps were a thing in WWE. What is it, like an 80-yard ramp? Kind of long. So it's a very long entrances for what was, I still thought, a fun WrestleMania. I know some people don't hold this WrestleMania as high because of how the fallout was. It was a lot better than WrestleMania 32, for sure. Some lows, but I think overall it was still a fun show, I remember, from WrestleMania. This documentary, though, I'm not going to lie, I didn't like it. It wasn't my favorite one. I think, I feel like most of these upcoming ones, some I've seen, multiple times. I think we're 2 away from the Hardy Boyz one. I've seen that one multiple times. This one, I feel I've only seen maybe once or twice before I watched it this time. So I didn't quite remember it all, but when I watched it, the main thing it really focused on most of its time was John Cena and Nikki Bella's engagement. Which, I guess that's why I don't like it as much now, because, they didn't know at the time, but it didn't work out. We all know that John Cena and Nikki Bella did call off the wedding. Nikki Bella went off to marry someone else and have a kid. Unfortunately, they just recently got divorced due to some, bad things happening between each other. Which made me wonder if Nikki Bella should just stop trying to be with someone, because she seems to always get herself in some sort of a bad situation, or just doesn't work out. It's a shame, but But I guess I didn't like how much the documentary focused on that match, where there was a lot more bigger things going on at this WrestleMania. But they still touched on some good key moments. But I guess it was still a fine one. But I would say so far this was probably one of my least favorites. But we're gonna roll and talk about it. Again, they did briefly touch on the Hall of Fame and, of course, the return of Kurt Angle. Of course, they didn't touch on it too much, though, as Kurt Angle has his own separate 24 that we just recently reviewed as well as also Goldberg, who we reviewed in the last one as well. They didn't touch on him too much either in this one, which is fine. Besides John Cena and Nikki Bella, they briefly did touch on, of course, the Undertaker, as this was originally his last match. Thank God it wasn't, because that main event was not good. It was not a good match. I'm sorry. It was one of Taker's low moments. Not as bad as in 2019 when he wrestled Goldberg and how bad that match was. Dear Lord. But they touched on that briefly. I did like that they did dedicate a little bit more time towards Roman and Taker, even though, again, I was not a fan of that match. They also touched on Naomi as well. And, of course, they spent a good time talking about the Hardy Boyz, too. And just kind of brushed through everything else, so to say. But it was still good. They touched on, again, Kurt Angle's Hall of Fame speech I mentioned. They, of course, briefly touched on the New Day as well, being the hosts for this WrestleMania. I thought that was a little odd, especially because, think about it, did New Day ever really have a big WrestleMania moment? As a team? Because their first WrestleMania, WrestleMania 31, on the pre-show, they got booed out of the building. WrestleMania 32, they lost to the League of Nations in the midst of being the longest reigning tag champs. WrestleMania 33, they were no longer the tag champs, but they were the hosts of WrestleMania 33. WrestleMania 34, they got squashed with the Usos against the Bludgeon Brothers. 35, they didn't have a match, but Kofi Kingston had his WrestleMania moment. I think WrestleMania 36 was the ladder match when they had to do it as a singles triple threat because I think it was Miz got sick. That was during the pandemic. 37, I believe they dropped the tag titles to AJ Styles and Omos. 38, I think they wrestled the Brawling Brutes in a random tag match. Were they WrestleMania 39 like a showcase match? The showcase match? Can't remember. But yeah, New Day really have had a great track record at WrestleMania. But they touched on that. They did, of course, highlight most of the first part when it got to the actual show, because they did talk about Naomi going to WrestleMania Access as this was in her hometown, and they had the storyline going at a time where she did beat Alexa Bliss for the SmackDown Women's title at Elimination Chamber, but then had to relinquish it due to an injury. Even though she was back in time and she joined the 6-Pack Challenge, which was a match that was originally supposed to be on the pre-show for this WrestleMania, but then due to some fan backlash, they put that on the main show and they moved Dean Ambrose and Baron Corbin for the Intercontinental title onto the pre-show. That was actually a match I was really looking forward to on the show. And then it was on the pre-show. I missed it because at the time I was leaving my parents' place and driving to my buddies, so I missed out on that. But they also showed Naomi doing the WrestleMania Access and the signing. She said she'd be very cool to meet at a signing. She was very loose and just having fun with the fans as usual. Like I said, when they started talking about the main show, though, they didn't really talk about much of the matches, though, because they focused on the first part of the show, the behind the scenes of the Hardys sneaking onto the bus, being interviewed about their return, which we'll get more in depth into their journey back when we get to the 24 special and 2 episodes away. They were a surprise entrant in the Raw Tag Title match, which was a ladder match, which was a triple threat. It was Sheamus and Cesaro before they called themselves a bar, Gallows and Anderson, the club, who were the tag champs going into this match, and Enzo and Cass. Of course, this was released shortly after Enzo got fired, so they had to kind of act like Enzo wasn't there and block him out. So, and then they made their surprise return. The match was definitely one of my favorite moments of the night, and the Hardy Boyz won the tag titles. Afterwards, it was everybody oh my gosh, I can't believe you're here, which was even though the rumors were very heavy, it was a very well hidden surprise for sure. But it was a nice return for course to see that happen as well. Then they kind of went a little bit out of order. I think next was when they showed Naomi winning the SmackDown Women's Championship in the 6-Pack Challenge. Crazy seeing Becky Lynch again with this match, because back then Becky Lynch was kind of very directionless. This is way before she became the man. And what a long way she has come since this WrestleMania. This wasn't for another year and a half until she finally got the fuel lit in her and became, the megastar she would eventually become. They surprisingly did not touch on much with Seth Rollins and Triple H, I remember, because they did show Seth practicing his entrance, where he was going to hold that torch and then place it on the ground and was going to just light the fire on the Trons on the ground. But when it got to the actual WrestleMania, they didn't really talk much about that match. They just briefly had Seth address how this was, it bothered him. It was well documented that it bothered him not being at WrestleMania 32. So this is his big redemption at WrestleMania 33. Which the match he had with Triple H was good. I think the problem, though, with that match again was it was just a bit too long. Had they would have shaved off maybe about 5 minutes of that match, it probably would have been a little more well received. There was that. They mostly just highlighted over most of the rest of the matches. We also, of course, had, like I said, they spent a bulk of the time hyping up John Cena, Nikki Bella versus The Miz and Maryse, which was basically, and even, Nikki was like, fans are saying he's going to propose to me. I don't think he's going to propose. But of course, he ended up doing it. They talk about a lot of behind the scenes build that story. The Miz coming up, of course, with the whole Total Bellas BS stuff that where they were imitating Total Bellas and John Cena's House Rules. I thought that stuff was very funny when they did those segments. That was really funny stuff. Nikki also talked about how, like, a couple weeks before, they had a segment with Breezango, and Nikki had hit the Rack Attack 2.0 on Tyler Breeze. Or no, it wasn't that. It was a spear she did on Tyler Breeze that I guess she ran into him awkwardly, and they thought she may have re-aggravated her neck again. And I guess she almost didn't get cleared, but then she ended up getting cleared in the end. Thank goodness, and was able to wrestle that match. And then afterwards, of course, they had Al Rooker there as a special guest announcer. And afterwards, yes, John Cena did in fact propose. And also, I forgot this happened, but they showed John Cena and Nikki's entrance, and all of a sudden you see John go, "Holy shit, that's my mom!" I guess he didn't know his mom was coming, even though her mom probably knew he was proposing. Which, again, this whole WrestleMania card changed because John Cena wanted to propose to Nikki Bella. And again, I blew up in smokes, unfortunately. I think the original card was Cena was supposed to face Undertaker. AJ Styles was supposed to face Randy Orton for the title. Randy was supposed to end this feud with Bray Wyatt at Elimination Chamber instead of Randy fighting Luke Harper. And then The Miz was supposed to go into WrestleMania as Intercontinental Champion, and he was going to face a main roster debuting Shinsuke Nakamura, from what I hear. Anything else I can think of, really? But yeah, John Cena proposed Nikki Bella. Apparently, Vince was the only one who knew for sure it was happening and whatnot. Like I said, John Cena and Nikki Bella kind of had it in with Vince. They were definitely some of his favorites, but, not going to complain much. It is what it is. Oh, yeah, Charlotte also briefly talked about earlier how she got to basically make the same entrance her father did when he retired the last time WrestleMania was in Orlando, which was WrestleMania 24. And I think she even had an interview sitting in the same exact seat she said she was sitting in, too. She, of course, would lose that Fatal 4 elimination match to Bayley. And I guess they went out of order for a bit. I guess the last thing I remember them talking about was the main event, The Undertaker versus Roman Reigns. And like I said, that match that match did not go well at all. Again, Taker was not in the best shape. And then, of course, Taker intended on retiring afterwards. But of course he later watched the match and he said, no, that can't be it. And he kept wrestling until he found that final match that indeed would wrap up his career. And that's basically it for WrestleMania 33's 24 WrestleMania Orlando. Like I said, I think what kind of hurt my, I shouldn't say hurt because again, they didn't know at the time, but I guess what kind of like downs this documentary again is the fact that I feel like most of it focused on John Cena and Nikki Bella. And then, of course, not getting married in the end kind of made that look a little tainted. I know, not tainted, but kind of looked like it was a little bit of a waste. But, it is what it is. That does it for the WrestleMania Orlando 24 review. I think the next one is called Empowered, which goes behind the scene, I believe, of the first ever Women's Royal Rumble in 2018. So we'll do that one next in this 24 review series. So that's my thoughts on this, guys. What are you guys' thoughts on this W24 review, WrestleMania Orlando? Leave your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. And also be sure, as always, to slap a like on the video and subscribe for more content on my channel. Follow me on Twitter as well, at the Club of the Man 93. You can also follow me on TikTok and Instagram at the Club of the Man 1993. And until then, guys, I'm checking out. I'll catch you all later. Have a great rest of your night. And do not forget, In order to be superior to the man, and my dog's fighting in the background, you gotta be the man. And for I am the man himself. And that is not just a pain, my friends. That is a fact of life. Yeah!